Okay, welcome. Good, I've got sound. Welcome to the nap. No answer period, where we preface the question period by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land. Let me just do something here first. Oh, what's going on? I think there we go. Far left. Excellent. All right, so typically on our pre-show, we show a bunch of videos. I usually have them lined up, and I still have them lined up now, but there's something interesting going on in the lower house right now, in the House of Commons. A private member's bill was introduced, um, and it's into a second reading, I believe. So let's switch over to that.
The bill is important. It speaks to principles fundamental to just government, to fairness and transparency. And I'm sorry to say that these principles have been sorely lacking in the actions of the Liberal government over the last 10 years. So for those just tuning in at home, every year the Canadian Revenue Agency for the last 10 years has forgiven or written off more than $1 billion of taxes or loans owed. More than $1 billion. And in the last fiscal year of 23 to 24, it was $18 billion. As my colleague just mentioned, this is on the order of our entire defense spending, which is about $35 billion a year. So $18 billion of forgiveness of loans written off. For those at home, and I'm thinking of my friend Dave, who's a plumber, my friend Ryan, who is a contractor. Yesterday we had a skating event put on by my office in Kitchener. I met Dragon, a small short-haul truck driver, and Libby, a grade 1 school teacher. Did they receive any forgiveness on their taxes? Did they receive any write-offs on their loans to the CRA? The answer is that they didn't. The vast majority of these write-offs went to large corporate fat cats who have big lobbyist budgets, who spend a lot of time in the offices of the government across the way. The CRA is systematically forgiving massive corporations the taxes that they owe to the public. The Globe and Mail reports that last year, 11 corporations, just 11, accounted for nearly a quarter of the write-offs. This arrangement raises the question, who is the government working for? Are they working for the people, or are they working for their friends on Bay Street? I can think of two cases in recent memory where the same question arose, where the same principles of transparency and fairness were broken all across the land. One is the COVID pandemic, where mom and pop stores, I'm thinking of, so at the beginning of the pandemic, I was teaching medicine at Queen's University in Kingston. There was a hardware store downtown that stood for 70 years. It was run by the Vandervoorts. I think it was called Vandervoort General Store. And unfortunately, it closed after 70 years of continuously serving the community, while Canadian Tire and Home Depot and Walmart all stood open. Similarly, small-time mom and pop gyms were closed down while major branches managed to stay open. And how was that? Well, through my work in politics, I've gotten to know some of these lobbyists. They had gigantic contracts lobbying governments, both federal and provincial, to stay open in a way that Vandervoort hardware store simply could not do. Another major example is the SNC-Lavalin scandal. If I were to go bribe the dictator of Libya and provide strippers to his sons, I think that I would go to jail. But if I was the proprietors of SNC-Lavalin, I would get the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, in the Attorney General's office, violating the principle of prosecutorial independence, which, by the way, is the same principle that the President of the United States broke and resulted in his first impeachment. So SNC-Lavalin is able to get the lobbyists who have the ear of the Prime Minister to get sweetheart deals, to get forgiveness of a similar sort the CRA is dishing out to massive corporations, and mom and pop are not. Not that I have any interest in bribing the dictator of Libya anytime soon. I'm glad that got a laugh. So what this bill does is restore some of the fairness and some of the transparency. If this bill passes, which I dearly hope that it will, if the CRA forgives more than $1 million of a loan, and I think it, or taxes, and I think the vast majority of Canadians will never see $1 million, let alone have a tax bill of over $1 million, then they at least have to say who they gave it to and why. It's very simple. It's not even saying that they can't continue to exercise this forgiveness. It's just saying the public is owed a debt. The government, in its boundless wisdom, has decided to write off that debt. We need to know who and we need to know why. And that would, at the very least, give us the opportunity to look at the lobbying registry and see how much that corporation paid on lobbying the Liberal government, and to start to ask the question whether those two numbers are related. For those watching at home, I have to say I was so struck shortly after my election. The first time I opened my parliamentary email, there were literally hundreds of invitations to meet with lobbyists. There are hundreds of invitations to attend receptions in downtown Ottawa. I instructed my staff, if the meeting doesn't say Kitchener, South Hespeler, somewhere in it, if it's not from a constituent of mine, I don't want to take it. But let me say that from what I have observed during my time here, many of those meetings and many of those receptions are attended by the members opposite, and it is my view that these corporations don't spend all that money on lobbying for no reason. They know how to get a return on investment, and I think that they are getting that return on investment, as evidenced by the $18 billion that the government forgave large corporations in the last fiscal year. So we want transparency, we want the registry, we want to start asking these questions. It was, by the way, from my understanding, the common practice for years and years that parliamentarians could at least ask order paper questions to put it to the government, who did you forgive and why? But just in recent years, the CRA has stopped providing that basic transparency. So we used to have it by convention, and somehow it's gone away over the last 10 years. And now we need to actually write it into the law that this transparency must exist henceforth. And I think it's a shame. I wish that we could use the honor system and could continue with our tradition of open government. It's particularly a shame given that 10 years ago, Justin Trudeau came to power promising to have the most transparent government in Canadian history. And in this and so many other ways, we have been betrayed. So that is about as much as I have to say about it, Madam Speaker. I know that the members opposite like to say that they are in a new government, they're doing new things, and I think this would be a tremendous opportunity for them to turn away from the legacy of the Trudeau government, from the legacy of restricting transparency, and beginning to restore, even in this small way. Again, this is not going to send anyone to jail. This is not going to stop the practice of gigantic write-offs for corporate fat cats with a stable of lobbyists, but it is at least going to give the public the answers that they are deserved. So I urge everyone in this House to vote for this bill, and for the members opposite, when they vote for this bill, to consider apologizing for their actions during COVID and apologizing for their actions during the SNC-Lavalin scandal. I hope that Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott will be invited back to their caucus soon. Thank you.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Simcoe North for his right of reply.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to rise in this House always, but it's also a pleasure to rise on Bill C-230, which is a private member's bill that I had drafted, and I want to appreciate or to thank all of my colleagues, obviously the ones from my own party who spoke in favor of this bill today, but also colleagues in other parties who have also expressed a willingness to see this bill go to committee, which I hope we'll be able to do that at the end of my remarks here this morning. I would also like to thank the large number, actually it's a small team, but they do great work, the legislative drafters, Marie-Claude Hébert and Marie Danek, who helped draft this legislation. I think we should be giving recognition to all of the work that they do to support private members in their business. unlike government ministers who have legions and a number of resources at their disposal, this group in the House of Commons supports us very well, and we are very well served by their expertise. Just to follow up on some of the comments, I think it's important that taxpayers have information to know how their money is being used.
Okay, so it looks like the draftee of the bill is going to be pretty well repeating the same message that the first MP we listened to. That was a really good piece. I think I might clip that into a short video. Well, let's get on with some more of the pre-show here. Maybe have that out so you don't get the reverberation through the mic. Let me see. Yes. Let's start off with the intro for the nap from the 21st of October. Let's do that.
While Donald Trump imposes 10% tariffs on every single vehicle that comes into Canada, these Liberals have passed an EV mandate that is actually going to give Canadian taxpayer dollars in the form of subsidies to American-made EVs.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
For the new world order.
Sorry about that. That's the wrong video. I see I didn't update that. That's fine. Let's just go in straight and remind everyone of what is going on in our parliament, and in keeping with actually this morning's second breakfast show, we were talking about turnkey totalitarianism, and we'll play a bit of this new video we put out over the weekend, and then we will go into some dependency, debility, and dread.
Progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
Well, as you can see, the timer has started to count down for the start of the show. So let's get into our next video.
Okay. All right. Mr. Speaker, there are three things that are true. First is, I realized long before the leader of the opposition, long before the last election, you remember the last election? Long before the last election, that our relationship...
Are eroding our moral fabric. And that's exactly what those who want to fundamentally change us want. If you look at the congressional record from January the 10th, 1963, Congressman Herlong of Florida read into the congressional record the 45 goals of communism in America. And they included all of those things. Gaining control of the schools and the teacher union so you can indoctrinate the kids, gaining control of the media and Hollywood so you can change the culture of America, making sexual perversion normal, natural, and healthy, denigrating the role of the family, elevating the role of government. It's all in there. We need to understand that we're under attack and we have to fight back.
Who do you think is orchestrating all of this?
There have been people who have been opposed to the American way and American values since the very beginning. The Europeans thought that we were crazy. They said, you can't run a nation on the will of the people. You have to have a monarch. You have to have a ruler. But in today's world, we have to contend with the factions that still believe that socialism and communism is a better way of life. You give control of your life over to others who will guarantee that they will take care of you from the cradle to the grave.
Speaker, there's a little thing called cause and effect. And the cause that the leader of the opposition is missing.
Since he took office, 86,000 more Canadians are unemployed, and we have the second highest unemployment in the G7. This is all the result of out-of-control government spending and taxes. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians, and now the Parliamentary Budget Officer rates his deficits as, quote, very alarming, stupefying, shocking, unsustainable. If you don't change, this is done. Something is going to break. We are at the edge of a cliff. Those are the words of the Parliamentary Budget Officer. When will he stop his out-of-control spending? When he's over the edge of the cliff?
Here. Mr. Speaker, there's a little thing called cause and effect. And the cause that the leader of the opposition is missing is the U.S. tariffs. The U.S. tariffs that are hitting steel, the U.S. tariffs that are hitting lumber, the U.S. tariffs that are hitting our auto sector. That's why we need to build this country strong. That's why we're getting spending under control. That's why we're going to spend less to invest more. I believe in this country, Mr. Speaker.
And it goes against the entire narrative of Carney that he is the man with a plan. That's why he told Canadians, and it's why he won this last election. They believed he had a plan. And in fact, he used it as an attack point. You know, a plan beats no plan. He has no plan now. He doesn't have a fiscal plan. Now he was elected leader of the party in March. You know, he could have given direction even before the election on what he wants his budget to look like. He had a costed platform. Why is there no budget? I find it absolutely mind-boggling that they're doing this, that not giving anything, any kind of a statement.
But what about if it was like, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this too, right? You know, when you guys won government in 2006 with Harper, he was sworn in early February, budget came in May. So if you give like a financial update now and a budget in September, you know what I mean? But it doesn't even seem like there's going to be a budget at all. It's going to be an economic state. A fizz, your favorite thing.
Right. So look, the Liberals have always been trying to figure out how to budgets balance themselves. Just don't have a budget balance. Look at that.
Right.
No, it's absurd. And even going to September, I think, is not acceptable. You look at the 2006 when Harper came in, that was a wholly transformed government.
I get it.
And they had a number of months to do it, and they did it. Carney became leader of the party in March. He was prime minister in March. He could have started giving direction, and he just had a fully costed platform. Former, again, central banker, Mr. Finance guy, worked at the Department of Finance, knows the ins and outs of that department. He was one of the guys that helped us do our budget in 2008 when we did it. So it just makes no sense to me. In 2011, we had an election, and a few weeks later, we brought in the budget. Now, it's the same government, same prime minister, but it makes no sense, and it goes against the entire narrative.
The intro for the show, and then we will be right back to start the nap.
All counter tariffs on U.S. goods covered under Kuzma. New reporting from the CBC
$60 billion of investment. Every region of this nation is going to benefit because we have a prime minister and a government that works for Canadians day in and day out. Conservative Party of Canada.
Well, David, we all remember last month.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Because they saw the ambition in that speech, and not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier, investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future. They know that the youth.
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
The Minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears.
It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
All of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Know that this government has their back and we will continue to do it. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Deficits are driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Sets us up well for the new world order.
Senators just don't get it, Madam Speaker. Is stop the filibustering on our budget implementation bill. If we have a Prime Minister that is literally bringing in billions of dollars of foreign investment, it's time that the Conservative Party...
The Prime Minister promised a strong economy. He delivered stagnant growth.
The Conservative Party of Canada cannot stop!
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
What? With the mic on? Yes, I do. Welcome to the NAP, the no answer period, where we cover the question period, prefaced by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. The NAP precedes question period by 45 minutes, and we'll cover the lower house until the government decides to stop showing up. We also keep score. The description of how we keep score is in the description below the video. We're streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube, so please feel free to leave us a comment. Comments drive the algorithm when I'm not driving the algorithm down with my forbidden comments, or forbidden words, I should say. So, it's been quite the day. A lot of stuff coming out today. As you can see at the beginning, if you're watching the pre-show, we had a member of Parliament introduce into that legislation. And I see where let's get rid of this studio mood here and see if we can't bring down the CPU issue. It's a little choppy. Again, as usual, always a bit of choppiness issues. Maybe if we get rid of this. Oh, I could see the internet was acting up a little bit. Maybe that's why we're choppy. So, welcome to the NAP. So, let's first remember what happened last Friday in the lower house. Another typical Friday in the lower house with mostly empty seats. In fact, the Liberals were desperate enough to have Krazy Kevin Lamoureaux yell and gesticulate at the Conservative opposition instead of slimy Steven MacKinnon just lie at them. That earned Lamoureaux a video of his own over the weekend. All the same topics came up. The ridiculous EV program that enriches U.S. companies over the few Canadian vehicle companies that remain. closing down agricultural science labs while spending on cultural Marxist ventures and consultants. Also, interesting, they shut down these labs just when it might be inconvenient with a certain ruling of the tribunal that we might touch on before the end of the show. When it came to the Universal Ostrich Farm, we covered that this morning on the second breakfast. The failing lumber industry, aided by liberals allowing raw logs to leave the country. That's right. We're sending raw logs out of the country to get manufactured into stuff that's imported back into Canada to sell, as opposed to, giving it to our local producers to produce stuff so we can do it. Like whatever happened to Canadians buying Canadians? Apparently not. I guess that's just words as usual from the liberals. The ongoing affordability crisis, gaslit by liberals, lying about our part-time jobs in an economy shedding jobs while with the living wage, allowing minors to inject drugs that will run government injection sites. Yes, that's right. They don't have an age restriction for minors coming into their harm reduction sites to take drugs. And as well, old age homes shifted to for-profit operations, not treating their seniors that well, right? Again, I'm wondering who got these for-profit contracts, right? Who friends were they of? Were they, I don't know, lobbyists who managed to get these old age homes under those corporations? No idea. And that's why this independent member at the beginning, if you're watching the pre-show, introducing this new legislation to find out which lobbyists are spending how much money and how much money is being, let's say, written off by CRA for these failed companies. Let's see if there's any matching. But then again, we could look at matching between, you know, lobbyists that give a bunch of money and those companies that they represent ending up with contracts that, let's say, run old age homes. I have no idea. I have no idea if they are. I'm just saying this is how these guys operate. The ongoing old age security new liberal software improvement failing to deliver checks to over 85,000 seniors for up to 9 months, which now, of course, has its own part two video where we've collated all the times MPs stood up in the House and asked questions and all the non-answers, they responded as well as they could, which initially was, oh, it's not that big of a deal. They just have to get used to the new software. And then it was like, oh, we understand there's problems, but we're trying to fix it. And it's not that bad to, yes, well, we realize there's like 2% of the people that are not getting their checks, to which, the luck came back and said, well, that's like 10,000 people, it's 2%. 500,000 on average, which apply every year for OAS. So that's 2,000 just, not getting their stuff, having to cause issues to the system. And then, of course, public servants started speaking up saying, this software is buggered up and it's causing us a lot of work. Why did you guys do this to us? And of course, they were being told to be quiet. Then, of course, the bloc asks about that. They don't get an answer on that. And then it comes out that the government admits that, oh, yes, it's over 85,000 now because, oh, yes, 2% from this year, 2% from the year before, 2% from 2026, I guess, now as we're starting. Of course, a lot of those are going to have some issues as well. So I'm sure that'll come up in the House again today. I expect this week will provide more material for the OAS crisis as the Liberals are only good at one thing, causing and exploiting a crisis, not fixing it. So as usual, you can find all the videos on X, YouTube, and Rumble on our other channels, as you can see here and there. And let's get to the House. So the House is in progress. Some meetings have been canceled. Oh yeah, look, Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights was canceled. I wonder why that happened. Some other meetings were in camera. Some of them were suspended. A lot of them that show adjourned. Of course, you won't know what the history of those were, if they were in camera or not, until you decide to go look at the recordings and find out, oh, I can't see what the hell they talked about. Now, it's not surprising to have an in-camera meeting for the Standing Committee on National Defense. And in the House of Commons, if you want to know what's happening, they have the order paper that is published every day. This is says Slimy Steve MacKinnon and his staff. They put together. His staff are not slimy, just Steve, the way he acts in Parliament. They put together this order paper every day, and it establishes the order of business. And they work on this calendar for days and weeks at a time. Every Thursday, at the end of question period, the golden question of the week gets to be asked by the opposition onto the House Leader, the Liberal House Leader, as to what the business is going to be for the next week. And basically, he gives an outline, the bottom line up front, the bluff, as we like to call it, of what's coming up for the week. And if you want to know if there's any questions that MPs have asked, you're like, why don't they ask these questions? Well, maybe they have. I mean, Parliament is in session all day long. Unless you're going to sit there and watch the entire session, you won't really know what's being asked. And of course, there's also questions being asked in committee that require a response. So all these are going to be tracked in here and what progress they're at. Unless, of course, you ask a question about COVID-19 vaccine harms, and you'll find out that, oh, yes, that's right, Prime Minister Carney decided to seal all those documents for the next 15 years. Wonder why they're working in darkness again. And of course, our qualified Canadian journalism organization, which received 27 to 30 grand per employee per year in tax credits, if they're allowed to, if they've been chosen by the Liberals to actually qualify for this, they will never report on these vaccine harms. It was Blacklock's. It was an independent newspaper that had to report it. Bupkis, I think, so far from the mainstream media. And of course, Bupkis from the Conservatives talking about this, raising it up as a question, trying to find out what the hell's going on. No, nothing. Bueller? Bueller? Hello, Bueller? No? All right. Well, as I was alluding to before, there's some breaking news regarding the Universal Ostrich Farm. I'm just going to play a little bit of the clip here. We covered all of this in the second breakfast this morning, but it's really good news.
Hey, Katie, what's up? Hi, so we got some really good information back from Hey, Katie, what's up? Hi, so we got some really good information back from a tribunal that we went to go fight our notice of violation associated with a $10,000 monetary penalty.
Right.
On Friday, we found out the tribunal has ruled that subsection 91.4 of the Health of Animals regulations required quarantine notices to be personally delivered, meaning physically handed to us. So what they are finding is that personal delivery requires physical in-person delivery, not electronic transmission. Right. And the requirement is mandatory, not discretionary. So really what this is.
So you can go listen to the whole video if you want to. I'm sure Dre will be, doing up a video on this today. If not today, by tomorrow on Rebel News. She's been covering the Universal Ostrich Farm. I'm sure it'll come up on their Rebel News afternoon show at 1 o'clock. And so, yeah, this is really good news. So basically, all the arguments that the government tried to make as to how they served their quarantine notice was dismissed by the tribunal judge. Basically, if they brought up, oh, well, we couldn't get enough police to safely deliver it, and they go, you didn't seem to have any problems to get a platoon of cops there to kill them all. Then they said, well, it was handed to them. Yeah, it was handed to them in a plastic bag, maybe through a fence loop. I don't know, but they were not debriefed. So there's a requirement. It's like a legal requirement when you're served. Basically, right? You've been served, and then you have to explain it to the person what the requirements of the quarantine are. So I'm wondering how many other farmers out there got treated the same way as Universal Ostrich Farm was by CFIA when they were told that their farm was being quarantined so that whatever herd or flock had to be destroyed by the CFIA. So anyway, again, it's They went out of their way to do everything wrong on this. I really covered it this morning quickly as best as I could using material that I have. What was in legislation on Second Breakfast this morning, so please go and have a look at that. Let's move on to our next story. Ah, yes. So, Kelsey here on her show. If you're not following her, please do. She does a really good show. Kelsey served. I think she might have been in Afghanistan about the same time. She said she was there for the closeout. I don't know how early she got there. I was there for Roto 11, sorry, 10 and 11. The closeout for Roto was Roto 12. Now she said she went back for the closeout, so she might have been there before. Yeah, my boots from back then. She talks about her old dusty uniform still being over in the corner. And those boots, they weren't issued. I had to buy those. The issued boots that they gave you were crap. It's like you got a boot that fit you, and then as an afterthought, they put a steel toe in after. And because I was working on the flight line, you need steel toe boots, right? Well, I started getting some kind of growth on the side of my foot. So off to row 2 I go, and what the hell's happening to my foot? He goes, "Oh, you got a bunion." I'm like, "Bunion? Screw that." Said my grandma got bunions. I'm not getting bunions. Turns out it wasn't a bunion. It's just a bloody bad boots, right? So I said, fine. I said, I brought my black Cadillacs, my black line boots from back home. I said, just give me a chit. I'll wear those. They're fine. And so I did. Then, of course, I had to go get some boot polish from the quartermaster. And it looked at me like I had 3 heads. I'm like, yeah, I know. So then I showed him my boots. I says, I issued boots are no good, but I can keep working with these. So they got me some boot polish, and it's so hot. It was so hot in Afghanistan at the time. The special boot polish that it gave us has ingredients in there that actually also act as a water deterrent. And of course, everything gets separated in a container. But that's just a story from that. So anyway, this will be interesting for anyone who's following up on all the treasure that we wasted in Afghanistan.
If you guys haven't seen the latest report that came out, which I'm sure the Liberal government didn't love, which I can imagine why they didn't love it. It's because between 2021, that time where we were involved actively in the pullout of Afghanistan, the one where we were fighting up against the Taliban, who were the people that we were against in the war. Those people, turns out, not only has America been funding them to the tune of, I think it's over $40 million a week, but also Canada threw its hat in the ring and decided between 2021 and 2024 that we would send, roughly 375 million of your hard-earned taxpayer dollars to the same people we just sent all of your soldiers to go and die against. Doesn't that make sense? Because apparently I'm the only one that seems to realize that. It's ridiculous. Now, it could be because I have real lived experience being in the country, knowing what the Taliban are really like. It could be because I was heavily involved in the Afghan pullout as well, so I can understand how they're going to manipulate and utilize that money. Or it also just could be because the fact that we left over $1 billion worth of United States equipment in the country wasn't good enough for them. We still needed to keep funding terrorism. But here's what's wild. Mark Carney and the Liberal government have done some kind of what I would consider like mind twist, like manipulative thing to make you think that you're helping the Afghani people. It's not true. Let me show you how. So between those, I think what we got 3 years in there. We haven't got the 2025 data yet to see, but I can assure you, we probably were still donating to them. Notice how I said the word donating. It's because they have framed it as the whole idea around development and, the.
To be fair, the Liberals never use the word donate. They use invest.
Whole humanitarian aid situation. But I guess the Canadian government isn't smart enough to acknowledge that the Taliban are a known terrorist organization and that money is not going where they say it is. Again, it could be because I've seen that in person, not just reported on it, smelt it, and been around it. And I can tell you, it smells like hell. So over 290 million of that dollars that you work so hard, over the 40% they take from you, so you can't afford groceries and housing and all of those lovely things in Canada and tell you that you're asking too much. They took that money and they sent it over to the Taliban, the ones that ban schools, that start slavery, that stone women to death, just the ones with the pedos and all of those lovely people. That's where your taxes went. And in humanitarian aid, and more than $143 million for basic needs, such as healthcare. Isn't that ironic? How we don't provide healthcare, but we can give it to the Taliban.
Here's what nobody's telling you about the new.
All right, there's plenty more in that video, but we don't need to watch this commercial either. Please go over to Kelsey's channel and watch her videos. She does a lot of stuff on medical assistance and dying as well. So Sandra Colbina, a Conservative MP, shows here, must watch, hidden inside the Budget Implementation Act are sweeping new powers that concentrate authority in a minister's hands, weaken parliamentary oversight, and sidestep democratic accountability. It's not just Conservatives raising the alarm. That broad coalition of civil liberties group, legal experts, economists, and governance watchdogs are speaking out about and calling these provisions undemocratic, a dangerous overreach, and deeply concerning for the future of our institutions. When voices across the political and professional spectrum are shocked by what is being posed, Canadians should be paying attention. Pay attention, Canadians. Power must be accountable. I will continue to oppose this overreach and fight to protect Parliament's role and Canadians' right to a government that plays by the rules. You can join me by signing the petition, blah, blah, link below. Now, I covered a lot of this in committee tomfoolery. I believe it was my Saturday second breakfast morning show. Went through a lot of short little committee pieces, but yeah. Basically, Jean-Philippe Champagne here is Jean-François Philippe Champagne. He's boy, he's a lawyer, as he likes to say. And boy, is he ever condescending. He likes to reframe things. Well, I would say, well, hello, or he's condescending when he says, I'm trying to help you. I'm a lawyer. Yes, let's listen to the lawyer.
There is a poison pill in this bill.
You're referring to something which is called the regulatory sandboxes.
This is a legal sinkhole.
The regulatory sandboxes.
This is why it is called the King Henry VIII provision. There is a poison pill in this bill in that you're asking for ministers to have the power to exempt entities, corporations, or individuals from any federal law except for the criminal code. Given the potential for abuse of this clause, would you consider removing it so we can move on and review the rest of the bill in the spirit of collaboration and speed of passing of the bill?
Well, I want to say thank you for the question, and thank you also for your contribution. You've been in the banking sector for many years, and I'm reminded by your leader's letter to say time to turn rhetoric into reality. Listen, I just want to say to you, and obviously this provision was specifically asked by the business sector in Canada to be at par with other G7 nations. So I always have an open mind, but I'm always very conscious of the impact it would have on the Canadian innovators and Canadian businesses, which want to have in a very constrained, like I say, the guardrails, that you can put around things. If you have suggestions with respect to guardrails.
With all due respect, this is a legal sinkhole. There are no guardrails, and you compare us to the G7 countries. G7 countries actually use regulators to run these regulatory sandboxes that you referred to. They rely on limited waivers, no action letters, supervised testing plans, not broad ministerial powers that you are asking for. It's not an apples to apples comparison. And on the topic of the business community, I have a letter signed by 43 organizations that have serious concerns with this, and they say Ministers would have radically new discretionary power to decide when and how federal legislation applies and to whom, but laws should apply equally, regardless of the status, wealth, or power. We insist that the federal government withdraw this undemocratic section of the bill.
Was that a question, or you want me to comment on that?
Comment on that.
Comment. Well, listen, I would just say there are clear time limits. There are clear exemptions, so it has to be in the public interest. It has to preserve public health, public safety, and the environment. We tried to mirror, I would say, what was done in other G7. Like I said, this is not something new. That's why I'm surprised but I respect the comments from the people who wrote the letter. But I'd say this is not a new tool. I mean, the OECD report, I think, dates back to...
Minister, I just explained the differences. It does not concentrate the power on the ministers, which is what you're asking for. So you, as minister, can choose the winners or losers. Entities, individuals would be inclined to lobby you personally rather than look at the rule of law. It is not a fair comparison with other G7 countries. Other G7 countries have regulators with very specific limitations. It's not the same. So with this provision, this is why it is called the King Henry VIII provision. So would you remove it because it has the potential of abuse?
Well, we have a set of guardrails. If you think of other guardrails that you think would be in the public interest, we're always looking at issues in order to move forward with an open mind. I'm also...
So, Minister, just to outline some of the risks, it would allow the violation of the Conflict of Interest Act. It would prevent citizens from seeking documents under the Access to Information Act, the Extractive Sector Transparency Measures Act, and there's a number of acts that could be violated at the prerogative of the minister. How is that reasonable?
Well, I would say I was just about to say, if you have suggestions with respect to guardrails, because I'm mindful of the people who wrote the letter and I respect their view. I'm also mindful of all the innovators and even the Council of Canadian Innovators who may have a view with respect to what I'm trying to achieve. And I'll be very transparent with you, as I should be in front of this committee. I'm trying to put Canadian innovators at par with other G7 so that we foster innovation in the country and don't hamper that. But I'm open-minded if you have any thoughts.
I'm trying to be transparent by not answering your questions. These people, man. And of course, the mainstream media does not show this at all, right? So when you see their panels doing their little discussion and their talking points, they always base their stuff on feelings. They're always talking about the leaders, but they're never talking about the substance of what's actually happening within the government or how these ministers basically flaunt disrespect themselves in front of taxpayers. So a little bit here from Moose on a Loose. David, if you're not following his channel, please do. He does fantastic work. He does a lot of work on his Moose chart, by the way, and he always has a link to it down here. It's moosechart.com. Awesome amounts of information. Listen to this little bit here on how the Kuzma thing is going to be affecting the Liberals. Probably why they are getting ready to call an election, because right now everything is going to shit and the Liberals do not want to wear that baggage. So they have to get out of Dodge as quickly as possible and then fool everyone into thinking that Orange Man bad is their biggest fear in their life so they can win the next election.
He went down to America, and he's telling us that Mexico is way ahead on the negotiations. As Terry Newman here from the National Post points out, there's no excuse for this. The Liberals have some answering to do. So in this article here, he says he met with Trump, Vance, Marco Rubio to discuss Canada-U.S. relationship. Here's a snippet from that article. It says, however, I do want to point out a key observation related to the need for strategic diplomacy. Mexico, the third partner in our trilateral trade agreement with the U.S., is further ahead in its engagement with the U.S. than Canada is. On January 28, 2026, Mexico and the U.S. announced formal talks on Kuzma reform. A week later, Mexico and the U.S. announced a joint action plan for critical minerals. Neither of these announcements included Canada. Not only that, Anita Anand did not sign up Canada in that big critical minerals pact that had 50 countries involved with America. This was just a couple days ago. last week. Observers of this news would be right to worry that the current Canadian government may be making similar mistakes as were made under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau during the 2017 CUSMA negotiations. And they're doing this for a reason. Mark Carney needs his majority government. He needs big, scary Donald Trump, and he won't be bigger or scarier than CUSMA being ripped up. Be like, oh, this is so dangerous and divided. The world is so unstable. We need more China, and I need a majority government. That's what he's doing here. He does not care about Canadian lives. He only cares about power and money. And with that, what do we see? This new petition that Bruce Fanjoy is putting out that's getting pushed by CTV News. When have you ever heard of CTV News pushing a petition? There's been tons of them with a crap ton of votes, way more than this petition. It says petition calls for federal leaders to get top secret security clearance. Really, this is a real thing. And all the crazy lefties like this coffee guy pushing this out here. So if we look at the petition, of course.
Yeah, how many times do we have to go over this NSICOP security level that was created by the Liberals in order to use as a gag order should anyone who signs on to this new level of security be given information that embarrasses the government or that shows that they are committing fraud or are doing worse, ethical violations, who knows, right? Because the NSICOP, once you sign on to that, oh, if you say anything that what you were told in that brief, you're going to jail, buddy. So that's why, politicians who are not liberals are saying, screw that. Why the hell would I sign something that's going to keep me from exposing the liberals and their corruption? But, of course, mainstream media, Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization, those clowns will never, ever explain that, will they? No, because they're in the bag for the liberals. Now, is there an election coming? Could be. Elections Canada has reported ordering 700,000 poll tally sheets to prepare for an upcoming election. With new reports of Mark Carney consulting Doug Ford on the possibility of a snap election, it appears even more likely. Yes, well, of course, my buddy over at Blazing Cat Fur has already generated us an image for this. It's a nice little dance number going on. And of course, Juno News here is another piece from committee. Conservatives are slamming the Liberals for handing $240 million to Canadian AI company Cohere, which flowed straight into U.S. firm CoreWeave to build a data center. Critics say the government knew the money would leave Canada. Minister Evan Solomon dodged the question when asked. Oh, really? Another Liberal being transparent? Say it isn't so.
Your government gave $240 million taxpayer dollars to Cohere as part of your government's so-called Canadian Sovereign Artificial Intelligence Compute Strategy to build an AI data center. We now know that Cohere has handed the same $240 million taxpayer dollars to a U.S.-based company, CoreWeave, to build and operate the data center. And so effectively, this is a $240 million handout, not to a Canadian company, but to a major U.S.-based tech company headquartered in New Jersey. Is it the case that in the lead-up to this $240 million handout, that your government knew that it was going straight into the pockets of a U.S. headquartered company?
Again, thanks for the question, and I just hope Canadians recognize that Cohere, we're very proud to have invested in Cohere. There are only 4 countries in the world that have a large language model companies. Those are the companies that are inventing the, people know the open AIs. There's the Americans, there's the Chinese. France has one and Canada has one. That company in the enterprise space is Cohere. They're built in Canada.
Respectfully, I asked a very specific question, and that is at the time and in the lead up to handing out $240 million taxpayer dollars to Cohere, was your government aware that it was going to go straight into the pockets of a U.S.-based company? Yes or no?
And again, let me just say we are very proud to have invested. Our investment was in a Canadian company, Cohere, which has Canadian jobs, Canadian IP, Canadian innovation. They're headquartered here. They're built here, and they're absolutely an important company to support.
And perhaps you're not answering my question because the answer is an embarrassing one for the government, and the answer is yes. An official from ISED, for example, is quoted
in a December 2024 article in the Globe and Mail indicating that CoWeave had been brought into the process and that the $240 million handout was made because your government saw it as an opportunity to act quickly. In other words, your government was more concerned with holding a press conference to look good rather than ensuring that $250 million taxpayer dollars would stay in Canada. Isn't that?
So before we carry on with this remaining couple of minutes here on that testimony, I was just looking this up here because the OAS issue that has screwed up software now that they've improved it, right? I just did a quick query. So the old age security program uses the Curran software platform, which is being implemented by Meritive, formerly IBM Watson Health, in collaboration with Deloitte. And then Cohere, that they're talking about here, the AI company, has a strategic association with Deloitte. Of course they do. They're all connected, right? And I'm sure if we looked at the lobbyist spending, if we can ever get that enshrined, because of course the Justice Minister has been dragging his feet on giving us a list of lobbyists, or those are foreign lobbyists, for a year and a half, because the Liberals love to work in darkness. Right, so it's not surprising that they're all in bed. And we'll talk a little bit more about everyone being in the same bed right after this video.
That right?
Again, our goal is to invest in Canadian champions. We're not trying to tell companies how to innovate and do business. That's the job of.
You're not investing. You're spending. You're spending. You're spending. You're spending taxpayer money. It's not your money. You're not investing. Investing means that you're actually going to get a return. Like you buy something that has a guaranteed return on it. That's investing. Or you invest in a business because, it's your money you're investing, you expect to have a return. This is spending. The only people that should be investing are other investors, not the Canadian public. But because you've destroyed the economy, you think that all of your socialist spending now is investing. Moron.
Of the CEOs. What we want to do, and I know the member appreciates that, government's not telling people how to do business, but we are investing, and we are going to support a Canadian champion like Cohere, where they have Canadian IP, Canadian headquarters, and they're a company that we want in Canada. And I know the member would support that.
Government.
Yeah, we're not going to tell businesses in Canada how to work, but, if you don't have a lobbyist who's going to bribe us to give them the contract, then I guess you're SOL.
Is truly interested in supporting Canadian champions. We know that there are several Canadian-owned companies that have comparable expertise and technology as CoreWeave. For example, eStructure has operated 14 data centers. They built them. If you're going to hand out $240 million tax dollars to build and operate a data center, which is exactly where this tax money went, why did your government fail to make as a condition of funding that the data center would be built and operated by a Canadian company?
Again, I appreciate the question. Our investment was in Cohere. Cohere is a nationally important company. We've, by the way, as a government, signed a memorandum of understanding with Cohere to make sure that we in the government are using Canadian technology. And we want to make sure that a company like Cohere, who has world-class technology, are employing Canadians, stay here. I will say, though, that you also mentioned.
I will say, though, anything and everything except actually answering the question. Wonder why that is. Let's listen to this. Ryan Garrettson posted this. It's one big club and Canadians are getting screwed over by them. I believe these are the news people from out in BC. They do a really good daily show as well.
Evan Solomon. This guy was the journalist that was fired from CBC for doing art dealings with none other than Mark Carney when he was the Bank of England governor. And when you do, who's the art dealers that you know, famous art dealers? Evan Solomon? Oh, right, Hunter Biden, another art dealer, right, that was selling his paintings for crazy amounts of money. And when Evan was fired, he ended up working at Eurasia Group. Right, that's where Diana Fox Carney works and Gerald Butts works. Huh, weird. Also, that company, Eurasia Group, is a climate activist group that also are a government kind of activist group where they write government reports. And who's one of the bigger buyers of those reports? None other than the Canadian government. Wow. And all of a sudden, Evan Solomon is now an MP and in charge of AI, the most important sector in the world right now, AI.
Can't make this stuff up. Every conceivable ethics violation possible out there, the liberals will violate. And if there's some you haven't thought of, they will probably think up those and violate those as well. Now, Global Affairs Canada does not track how much they spend on travel, hospitality, or administrative costs. They use tax dollars, like a credit card, and spend with no guardrails. You can't run your business like that. Why should the liberals? Well, I guess that's how you accumulate $1.3 trillion of debt with nothing to show for it. Stop stealing the money and spending it on booze. Indeed. Well, shameful. Mark Miller dares call himself a Christian and use the name of Christ in vain, but in the same breath wants to make passages from God's word illegal. Of course, this bill, C9, is still going through committee. They are still trying to censor the Bible, just like communist China telling you which passages are acceptable and which are not. Why is the government getting into religion? Oh, because they're a cult. They're a cult, they're an ideological cult, and they insist that everyone else think like them. And if you don't think like them, no problem. Don't worry about it. They're bringing in legislation that will ensure that you think like them. That's where self-censorship comes from.
From the hate speech laws to pass Bill C9. You're the chair of the Justice Committee.
Right.
Is that happening?
Well, I had to question myself. Look, I'm a person of faith. I'm Christian. I have very, very deep beliefs. The reality is I don't think people should be using the Bible, the Quran, or the Torah to escape from committing a hate crime or claim that the hate, what would otherwise be a hate crime, is done in the name.
Let's not forget that when he's talking about hate crimes, right? This is a legal fabrication that they are changing in law because we already have a definition of what a hate crime is in Canada. But they want to change the legislation to be more loosey-goosey and all-encompassing so that morons like this can say, well, those are bad words written in that book, and we have to prevent people from saying those in public lest they commit a hate crime. Crime?
Of a religious text. You can look at the religious texts yourself and see what they mean, but the reality is that there is an exception in the criminal code that are making people hesitate. And when the conservatives come out and pretend that they are defending freedom of expression, they are defending people like Adel Shakari.
Oh, we have to protect people from being offended. Oh, God forbid somebody being offended. Who the hell do these people think they are? Oh, I know who they think they are. They think they're your betters. They think they are elites. That's why they made a whole segment of the population second-class citizens during the COVID stupidity, because they think they are better than you. Oh, no, they're not on par with the rest of Canadians. They're lofty. Lofty in their ideals, lofty in their ideology, and you must conform to what they say, just like the National Socialists we've all come to love and adore.
Justement, ils ont beaucoup parlé, les conservateurs, sur la haine envers les Juifs pendant les 2 dernières années, suivant ce qui s'est passé à Gaza.
There have been hate crimes against Jewish people in Quebec, and
as I said in English, those people are defending hate crimes and hate language, and I don't think we should be using the Bible, the Quran, or the Torah to commit a hate crime. That is my perspective. Do you think that people are open to that change?
Removing this religious exemption from the criminal code?
Not entirely sure. I think it's been discussed for years. Certainly, the Bloc Québécois showed some leadership in that area. I think it is it's intellectually.
Yeah, the Bloc Québécois is as far left ideologically as the Liberals, if not even further. Now, they're the first ones to cry and cry and cry in the lower house when any of the climate scam initiatives get curtailed a little bit. But meanwhile, they refuse to exploit their own natural resources and love to suck off the Western teat of $9 billion a year in transfer payments so that they can live in their climate utopia and not have to develop their own carbon resources to keep their people warm through the winter. But, you think socialism is bad in the rest of Canada. Wait till we move to Quebec. Although they've managed to reduce their taxes to the point where you actually pay less in taxes in Quebec now than you do in Ontario. And it used to be the opposite. So I guess there is an advantage to being on the teat of the Western provinces and sucking money out of them. Oh, here's a little reminder. As Trudeau's immigration minister, Mark Miller may have been the most disastrous cabinet minister of any government in Canadian history. So why should we listen to a word this maroon says? Why is he coming back to cabinet? They were asking back then. Yeah, exactly. Why is he there? Why is this obnoxious, condescending see you next Tuesday there? And if you think he's a see you next Tuesday, please let me know in the comments. Now, let's see. Slogan. Taxpayers funded spin doctors. Ottawa spent $262,000 teaching bureaucrats how to dodge Parliament's questions. Yeah. Yeah, we invite them into committee and to answer questions. And of course, now we find out that they have been trained to dodge questions. That's not kosher at all. Not at all. All right, so I'm just looking down here. We're quarter after the hour, so the lower house should be starting its question period. Of course, I've got some internet issues. Come on now. Let me just do a quick refresh. Certainly do not want to miss question period. Yeah, we look to be still statements by members, perhaps? Or is he asking a question? Well, they hardly ever start on time. We'll just flip back here and see if it's statements by members or if they've actually started. Oh, we're still statements by members. Right, so this post here by Nico Lagan. Canada is sitting on a powder keg with over 1 million people currently living here on expired visas and 4 million more permits set to expire by year's end. And the government's plan for enforcement is nothing. I've done a video on this last week. Rumpel Gardner, MP from out west, was asking these questions like, what's your plan? They had no plan. Of course, they had no answer, let alone they were supposed to deport 32,000 known immigrant criminals, right? But they only knew where 20,000 of them lived. And last year in committee, Gun Grab Gary, said that, well, we know where 20,000 are. We're going to get rid of them by the end of the year. Now, we don't know if they did or not, but the immigration minister bragged that they got rid of 22,000 people or 23,000 or something. So we don't know out of that group whether or not those were the actual criminals. We don't know the status of the other 10,000 or 12,000 other criminals that are migrants that are moving around. And they have no plan other than probably want to give them all citizenship And here we go. We're starting. Let's go.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Everywhere you look, life is getting harder for young people after a decade of this government. Finding a place to live is harder because home prices, rents, and mortgages have doubled. Getting a job is harder because youth unemployment is still double the national average. And even buying groceries is harder because food inflation is up 100% under this Prime Minister's watch. After paying for the basics, there's barely anything left, and often nothing at all. How can anybody on that side of the House stand behind a record that has completely failed an entire generation of Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way as this government has supported Canadians in what undeniably is an uncertain time, they have fought against, Mr. Speaker. Conservatives have stood up time and time again against Canadian families, against Canadian workers, against Canadian children, voting down, Mr. Speaker, things like school food programs, enhancements to EI, work and support for families, early learning and childcare. Mr. Speaker, no matter the solution, all they can do is obstruct and get in the way.
That's right. Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The minister can pretend that everything is fine, but she's clearly not listening to anything anybody says in here. So maybe she'll listen to Miriam from Toronto. She's 26. She works 12-hour shifts as a nurse and told CTV News that, quote, saving for a home is completely out of reach right now. She said that she's barely making ends meet, even after going to school, getting a good-paying job, and doing everything that she was told to do. So is this minister really saying to young people who have done everything right that they should just lower their standards and accept a future of just getting by?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what this government is saying to young people is you can help us build big things in this country. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? Canadian young people are stepping up to help. All across the country, Canadian youth have been taking advantage of skills training, Mr. Speaker, in partnership with provinces just like Ontario to make sure that as we build big things, they're on the front line in the skilled trades, building bigger, building better. But you know what, Mr. Speaker? These Conservatives will vote again and again and again against the very people they say they help, including young people. You know, in that own riding of Thornhill.
The Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
The last 10-plus years have been incredible if you're a well-connected Liberal insider, lobbyist, friend, or have business connections to the Prime Minister. Every leading indicator says the Canadian economy is in free fall, and while they get to gorge on the all-you-can-take taxpayer buffet, auto workers, tradespeople, families, and single moms who are struggling to pay rent and mortgages, young people who have lost hope, and seniors who can't afford groceries are being told they've never had it so good. What happened to all the grand promises of the last election? Wasn't it more about Liberal self-preservation than solutions to fix the self-inflicted wounds they've caused over the last 10 years?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
We have a plan to attack affordability across this country that starts with housing, but it certainly extends to tax breaks like we saw in these recent weeks with the groceries. And we had a tax break for 22 million Canadians last year. So, Mr. Speaker, we're delivering on affordability. We're focused on a first-time home buyer's tax break up to $50,000 and building homes, affordable homes for young Canadians at an unprecedented scale. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
Every metric, every problem Canadians faced before the last election is getting worse. Food costs have doubled. Food bank use has doubled. Housing starts are almost non-existent. We're seeing mass layoffs and plant closures across all sectors of our economy. The interprovincial trade barrier still exists. Still, no trade deal with the U.S. $500 billion in investment capital have left Canada. Deficits are ballooning, and Canada's debt is at record levels. In the last election, they promised affordability, lower prices, and real relief for Canadians. So after a year of higher costs and broken promises, which part of that do the Liberals actually think that they've delivered on?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Maybe the member doesn't know, but we're in the middle of a trade war, Mr. Speaker. But despite that, Canada's economy has been resilient. Canadians have created over 160,000 jobs since September. Wages are rising. Inflation is now within the target range, but we're not stopping there, Mr. Speaker. We're building big, building bold, and building now. With Canadian lumber, Canadian steel, and Canadian unionized worker, Mr. Speaker, we're making the largest infrastructure investment in Canadian history to strengthen communities, create more jobs, create long-term careers in the trades. Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives continue to object, play games in Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we're working for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent Akawenrak. Mr. Speaker, what could be more essential than food? We cannot live if we do not eat our fill. And yet, sadly, all Canadian families are facing the worst food inflation of all G7 countries. Food inflation is 6.2%. Our food basket costs twice as much here as it does in the United States. And in Canada, food banks are overwhelmed. When will the government take real, effective action to combat food inflation and to get results? The Minister of Industry. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, grocery prices are rising. We are aware of that, and that's why we are in solution mode. We put forward a clear solution to this Parliament, and our solution is supported by the Conservatives. We will give $1,200 to a family of 4. We are here to help Canadians through these tough times of food inflation. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent Akawenrak. What we need are real results with long-term, tangible impacts. Last weekend in Quebec City, I was doing groceries, and I ran into a grocery store manager. He came up to chat with me, and he told me that he was disheartened. Now, parents are stealing or shoplifting food. That's the state of affairs. And the fact check on this is that the Canadian Council of Retailers estimates that $9 billion worth of food is being stolen from groceries. When will the government take real action to combat food inflation for the long term? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are here. We are here for the long term. Our measure is for a period of 5 years. We will be able to support families through this time of rising grocery costs. But we are here for people through other programs. We have the Canada Child Benefit, for instance. We have the National School Food Program. And good news, the Government of Quebec and the federal government just signed an agreement for that. We're there for families. We're there for children. We're there for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the minister revealed that 85,000 retirees have been experiencing problems with their old age pensions due to the QRAM software. In some cases, these problems have been going on for up to 9 months. The government was warned by its own public servants as early as this summer. And yet, even today, all the government can come up with to say is, if there are any individual cases, give us those people's names. Mr. Speaker, with 85,000 individuals affected, we are well beyond the point of dealing with isolated cases. We're facing another fiasco like the Phoenix fiasco or the passport crisis. Why did the Liberals wait until 85,000 people were affected before reacting? The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors. Through the budget, over 7 million seniors are receiving their pensions through a modern system. QRAM software will be used for 4 projects. $6.6 billion is the amount that has been approved for the project. The member across the way is welcome to give me the names of those who are affected. We will help those people. The member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, there was once a time when Liberals told Quebecers, you must stay in Canada or else you won't receive your pension anymore. Now the government's telling seniors, stay in Canada even though you won't receive your pension. And to top it off, we're all going to pay a fortune for this fiasco, including seniors they're going to pay because the QRAM software has gone over budget by almost $5 billion. That's a high price to pay for depriving retirees of their old age benefits. Why is it that every time the federal government gets involved, we end up with skyrocketing costs and no services? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the Secretary of State just gave us the state of affairs. We are modernizing our systems. Now, seniors will be able to sign up for old age security. They will be able to receive their benefits on time, and they will receive the right amounts. If there are any individual cases, if any members in this place have heard of any cases, They are more than welcome to tell us about those cases so that we can follow up. Mr. Speaker, there have been a few isolated cases, a few isolated mistakes, and we are fixing that.
Holy what? Seriously? 85,000 seniors are not getting their checks, and they just explained to you, want us to send you 85,000 names? And slimy Steven MacKinnon stands up and says, oh, it's only a few people. What? These, you can't. Oh.
Mr. Speaker, the minister said that 85,000 pensioners are having problems with their old age pensions because of the federal government. Now that 85,000 people are affected, it's time for the Liberals to stop treating this as if it were just isolated cases. Resources must be devoted to resolving these cases. The cases are piling up in Ottawa. The government must fix the problems with the Kuram software. They must help public servants to better serve the public. And at the very least, the federal government must stop treating retirees' problems lightly. When will the government get to action for those affected? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, 7 million Canadians receive old age security benefits. The software that we use to pay out those benefits has been modernized. We are modernizing our way of paying out benefits, and this modernization will help people. Seniors will be able to sign up for their benefits online rather than having to line up at a Service Canada office or having to wait on the phone. 85,000 people, that's 85,000 too many. We can all agree on that. But, Mr. Speaker, we are fixing these cases.
In St. Paul.
Last week, the Liberal government announced $2.3 billion in subsidies to buy electric vehicles. Electric vehicles manufactured in the United States will be eligible for this subsidy. It is inconceivable that the Liberal government would launch a multi-billion-dollar taxpayer-funded program that will directly benefit the American auto sector at a time that Trump's tariff war has cost Canada 5,000 jobs and counting in our auto sector. Will the Liberal government reverse course and stop American access to this $2.3 billion subsidy, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Indeed, good news. Last week we announced our auto strategy based on 2 objectives. First, making sure we support auto production here in Canada and supporting those who invest in us, so basically the companies that produce cars in Canada. And second, making sure that we embrace where the industry is, which is electrification, and where it's going. So, Mr. Speaker, apart from the Conservative, everybody has been in favor of it. Premier Ford, the unions, the industry, even environmentalists and consumer groups.
Except the actual consumers themselves who are not buying them, right? The ones that you want them to buy it are not buying it. Moron.
Why don't they get?
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Who is also in favor of this, Mr. Speaker? Donald Trump. Because $2.3 billion is now accessible to his auto market when his tariff war is costing our economy thousands of jobs. It is, again, inconceivable that the Liberals would manufacture a program that gives billions of taxpayer dollars access to the American market. Why would we subsidize the American auto sector at a time like this? Will they reverse course, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Seems to be a problem with their translation. We can hear somebody.
When auto plants from American car companies were being closed, we embraced the Japanese automakers. We'll do that, and we will endorse those who build EVs.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
The happiest person in North North America when these Liberals announced their EV subsidy plan is Donald J. Trump.
Yes.
Let me explain. He has explicitly said he wants to take every single Canadian auto job and bring it down to the United States. And under these Liberals, he's succeeding. 5,000 auto workers have lost their job. The plant in Brampton that was supposed to build the Jeep Compass is now in the United States. So they are succeeding under these Liberals. Auto workers do not want their tax dollars going to subsidize American-made vehicles. Will the minister look them in the face today and say, no Canadian tax dollars will go to Trump's America to build vehicles?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister.
You know what we do on this side of the aisle? We look at people in the eyes and we say, we'll defend your jobs. And that's exactly what this auto strategy is about. This auto strategy is about supporting auto production in Canada. And we are making sure that we're talking to Koreans, to Germans, to Chinese, to create good jobs in this country. And while we will just not let our industry just go bit by bit to the south, we will fight for these jobs. We have an auto strategy, and they should get with the program.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
I almost feel badly for this minister pathetically trying to justify sending money to Donald Trump's America to subsidize the production of American EVs. This is the president who has declared economic war on Canada. He has said he wants every single Canadian auto job in the United States. And under these Liberals, he's succeeding. The Canadian auto economy is being decimated. Their plan, allow the American auto manufacturers access to Canadian dollars for EV subsidies. It's disgraceful. It's unconscionable. Will she apologize to Canadian auto workers for this terrible policy?
The Honourable Minister.
Not because my colleague is just increasing his rhetoric that actually he's right. What is right is that we have met the tariffs by the U.S. administration against our auto workers with counter tariffs. And every time the production has reduced in Canada, what did we do? We made sure that we limit the market access to Stellantis by 50%, to also GM by 24.2%.
A lot of people don't realize is that when they say counter tariff, all that does is harm Canadian businesses, because now our stuff that we're shipping over to America is now going to cost Americans more because the Liberals have imposed tariffs on those things, further destroying Canadian businesses. That's all these Liberals know how to do, is screw everything up.
We will invest in those who invest in us, and we will make sure to create good jobs in this country.
The honourable member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, Cami workers were devastated last year when they lost their jobs, but it got worse. Last week, they received their layoff payouts only to see that more than half of it was clawed back in taxes. That's thousands of dollars, and many of them can't afford to wait for the next year's tax return. They need the money now to pay for their bills, their mortgages, their rents, and to put food on the table. So will the Liberals work with us, stand with Cami auto workers, and provide immediate tax relief so they can afford to live?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, the only party fighting against workers is the party opposite, who voted against the budget, wherein we outline the work that we've been doing to protect workers for exactly this situation, Mr. Speaker. And thanks to the proactive vision of the government to protect workers in these situations, workers who are separated from their employment now can keep their last pay. They don't have to wait for EI. And indeed, long-tenured workers, like many of these, will receive an additional 20 weeks on top of supports for readjustment, Mr. Speaker. We've been there for workers, we will be, and we certainly won't vote against them.
The honourable member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't get an answer to my question, but it's sadly ironic that while Canadian workers are losing their jobs, while they're seeing more than half of their payouts taken to taxes, the Liberals are out handing $2.3 billion for subsidies for American-made electrical vehicles. All this is happening while the U.S. is slapping tariffs on Canadian-made autos. Canadian tax dollars should not be funding American-made EVs. So my question is very simple. Why is money being taken out of the pockets of auto workers to fund American jobs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I know the member and I know he cares about those workers, as do we, Mr. Speaker. The Cami plant in Ingersoll is a half hour from my house. I regularly speak to Mayor Brian Petrie, who's doing an excellent job in very trying circumstances. Business owners who rely on the presence of the plant, I know them. The social agencies who are responding to the crisis on the ground, I know their leaders, I know their staff. We should work together on their behalf. He also knows, Mr. Speaker, that for the severance pay that he's referring to, the CRA is treating it as it always is, as a matter of Canadian law. The time is to put away politics. Let's work together on behalf of the people of Ingersoll and the auto sector.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
The Prime Minister has committed $2.3 billion to subsidizing EVs, yet most EVs sold in Canada are made outside our country. The Industry Minister herself admitted only one EV is made in Canada. Canadians are being forced to subsidize rebates for American-made cars, while over 5,000 Canadian workers have lost their jobs to U.S. tariffs. Why is the Prime Minister forcing Canadians to subsidize American-made EVs instead of putting Canadian workers first and adopting the Conservative plan to cut GST on all Canadian-made vehicles? Would not that make more sense?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Speaker, I would like to correct my colleague. There's not only one EV made in Canada. It's a Dodge Charger, of course, but also there's the Pacifica. And more to come. We have 2 battery plants. One also in Windsor, there against, we still don't understand why, which is an LG battery plant. And there's one that is being built as we speak by Volkswagen. Good news, 3,000 jobs coming to St. Thomas. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to our auto workers, we'll continue to fight for them. We won't sit idle while basically a lot of the industry is going through its most difficult period in decades. We'll fight for them.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes, Verchères. Mr. Speaker, we criticize the federal government for doing nothing to address the issue of low-cost drivers. But it gets worse. Not only is Ottawa doing nothing to address the issue, they are giving those drivers contracts. Canada Post has done business with at least 25 companies that hire low-cost drivers, including one that was involved in a fatal accident. And the worst part is that the federal government was warned about this 2 years ago by the Trucking Alliance. When will the Liberals set up a registry of sketchy companies instead of hiring sketchy companies? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, Post Canada is, of course, working with many trucking companies throughout the country. The CEO of Canada Post has assured us that the business in question uses the Driver Inc. model. There is a clear code of conduct for these companies to follow, and there are consequences if they do not follow the code of conduct. And we, as the federal government, are ensuring that Canada Post follows the rules. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes, Verchères. Mr. Speaker, Canada Post has hired 25 companies that do business with low-cost drivers. The Liberals have been aware of the problem for at least 2 years. We offer the Liberals 10 solutions. Not only do the Liberals refuse to implement our solutions, but they're continuing to feed the beast. At this point, the Liberals have gone beyond just turning a blind eye. They are now complicit. The Liberals just gave Canada Post $1 billion. Can they at least make sure that that money doesn't end up in the pockets of problem companies?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada Post is proud to work with many trucking companies across the country. In doing so, the CEO of Canada Post has assured us they have no engagement with Drivers Inc. model. All contracted suppliers are provided with clear expectations, a code of conduct to abide by, and consequences for non-compliance. We, as a government, expect Canada Post to abide by these standards. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, last week, the member for Beauport-Limoilou told us in this place that the cost of the tramway in Quebec City was now up to, get this, $13 billion. Yes, Mr. Speaker, $13 billion. That's $5 billion more than what's outlined in the agreement between Quebec City and the Caisse de dépôt. Can the Minister of Finance confirm whether the cost of the Quebec City tramway is $7 or $7 billion or $13 billion, as the member for Beauport-Limoilou said?
Monsieur le Président, merci pour la question.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for the question.
Investment of $1.44 billion from the federal government, and we continue to invest significantly in public transit across the country. The Canada Public Transit Fund as well as the Building Community Strong Fund, where there is tens of billions of dollars available if this House supports the budget to allocate towards transit. So Quebec, other provinces, cities will have access to the Build Community Strong Fund with the support of this House to fund major transit projects. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, $1.4 billion, that's an amount from 9 years ago. We are way further than that now, and the member for Beauport-Limoilou said it will cost $13 billion. Will the Liberals follow their promise? Because in the budget, there's not a cent for public transit in Quebec for this project. So will Quebec City get $0, or can the Liberals commit to a certain amount today? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the member for Beauport-Limoilou has been here for 9 months and has done more for the tramway than that member has done for the tramway in 10 years. We've been supporting the tramway project since 2018, and unlike the member across the way, says it will be $1.4 billion. That's what we are committing to this public transit project for the Quebec City region. Now, of course, we are still in talks for funding for Quebec through the Public Transit Fund, and there will, of course, be funding through the Building Community Strong Fund.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Basca. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The same Liberal mismanagement is repeating itself like a bad movie. Remember ArriveCan in 2022? The budget, $86,000, but actual cost, $60 million. 5 years later, same Liberal team, IT scandals are repeating themselves with Curam. Budget, $1.6 billion. Actual cost, $6.6 billion. And what's more, it's a failure. 86,000 seniors are waiting for their money. 86,000 seniors. What do you tell these seniors who are listening to you? Am I writing? Well, your answer is live right now. I don't have an answer to give you. I confirm to the Honourable Member, I don't have a reply. The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors. More than 7 million seniors are receiving their benefits on time, and these are 4 distinct projects. $6.6 billion have been set out and approved for the life of the project. I would ask the member across the way to give the names of these seniors, and we will help them. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, we've all seen cost overruns with Sac Leak site. Hundreds of millions of dollars gone up in smoke. But this is peanuts compared to the federal Curam fiasco. $6.6 billion instead of $1.75 billion for a failed software program that was supposed to manage old age pensions and doesn't even work properly. Currently, there's 86,000 seniors who aren't receiving their money because of this Liberal incompetence. The Liberals are still wasting billions, and Canadians are always paying the price. When will this government finally, what will they do with this federal fiasco? Thank you. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to tell Ms. Bolduc, who's listening to us, or the constituents of all these ridings, one case too many. We're going to solve all these issues for Madame Bolduc and everyone. We will give them the benefits they have the right to receive, and we are modernizing our IT infrastructure, and it will serve Canadians well. It will allow for better service going forward and quicker access to old age security. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the new Curam software for managing old age security benefits is a real disaster. Not only does it exceed the projected costs, but it works so poorly that employees give it a rating of 5 out of 10 or less. In fact, according to one employee, if the department had listened to its agents, it could have developed a system that was 1,000 times easier to use. Why should seniors suffer the consequences of this mismanagement by the Liberals? The Honourable Minister.
Correct. There aren't cost overruns. In fact, the project is on budget, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, 7.4 million OAS clients were migrated in March of 2025. Seniors can apply directly online. This is a 60-year-old system, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, Canadians expect us to keep our IT systems modernized, and that's exactly what we're doing. If the member opposite has a constituent that needs help, please give them our name. We can certainly accelerate their case.
The honourable member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas.
The United States government has unilaterally started a trade war against Canada.
I really couldn't hear a word of that, so we'll have the honourable member. We'll have the honourable member. We'll have the honourable member start from the top. We'll start from the top.
Every time.
And yes, he can start from the top. Thanks.
Every time. The United States government has unilaterally started a trade war against Canada. In response,
there's obviously a subtext here somewhere.
yeah, he's always yelling at Pierre.
But let's put that aside. Let's put that aside. In good faith. I don't want to call anyone out on this side either. So the honourable member from Hamilton West, Ancaster.
So in case you don't know, the guy that they are heckling and not allowing to talk dismissed all the church burnings, said that it was never happened. It's just a conspiracy of the far right. That's why they're heckling.
Trade war against Canada. In response, the Prime Minister is committed to doubling non-U.S. trade with direct measures to help Canadian businesses adapt and grow. Can the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources tell this?
Yeah. This is going to make the question period a little lengthier than I had anticipated. I was going for a new record today, 303 or 304, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I guess anyway, we're going to give it another shot, and yeah, we have to, or else this is going to go on for a long time. We'll cut into committee time and everything. So the honourable member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas has the floor.
As I was saying.
And let's see if we can get through it. And of course, that doesn't help either. So we'll try from the top.
From the top. The United States government has started a trade war against Canada. In response, the Prime Minister is committed to doubling non-U.S. trade with direct measures to help Canadian businesses adapt and grow. Can the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources tell this House what our government is doing to support Canadian businesses impacted by unjustified American tariffs?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for that excellent question. We are standing shoulder to shoulder with workers and business.
What the hell just happened? Since when is Tim Hodgson the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources? I thought he was the Minister of Housing. What the hell is going on?
Is facing the impacts of unfair and unjustified U.S. tariffs with targeted support to help businesses adapt, retool, and stay competitive. That includes $1 billion through the Regional Tariff Relief Initiative, which is helping businesses protect jobs and diversify to new markets. Mr. Speaker, we're not just helping businesses weather this moment, we're building Canada strong.
Yeah. The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have been disappointed to see that this Prime Minister is not delivering on his promises. Now, he promised the strongest economy in the G7, but we lost 52,000 private sector jobs last month. He promised to build at speeds unseen in generations. We're actually losing jobs at speeds unseen in generations. Now, Conservatives have offered solutions like the Canadian Sovereignty Act and the Conservative Youth Jobs Plan, which Liberals continue to oppose. Mr. Speaker, when will they reverse course and start creating jobs instead of more job losses?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, Conservative slogans, rhetoric, and obstruction don't feed Canadian families. We've cut taxes for 22 million Canadian families. We cut the GST for first-time homebuyers. We cut the consumer carbon tax. And just a couple of weeks ago, we announced the Canadians Groceries and Essentials benefit that will put up to $1,900 in the pockets of working families. On this side of the House, we're going to continue to be laser-focused on affordability for families. That side, stop the obstruction.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, I truly have no idea what that member is focused on, but my question was about the results of their policies. Now let's talk about the results. 52,000 private sector job losses, 28,000 in manufacturing alone. That's just in the last month. He talked about the price of food. We have food inflation in this country that's more than double food inflation in the United States. Mr. Speaker, if this member can't answer a question about the results, when will he look at those Statistics Canada reports? And if he sees the problems that every other Canadian can see, when will they reverse course?
Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, that Conservative leader and that member, think about this. They actually supported giving millionaires child benefit checks.
That's right.
They supported giving millionaires child benefit checks. Let me say that again. They voted against the school food program. Every other affordability program we have put forth, they have voted against. That party is focused on obstruction. We're focused on delivering for Canadian families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Haldimand Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are losing jobs, plants are shutting down, and investments are fleeing. Canada lost 52,000 private sector jobs last month alone. Workers and families are paying the price, from GM employees in Oshawa to forestry families in Quebec who are struggling to put food on the table. This is the opposite of what the Prime Minister promised. When will the Liberals admit that their rhetoric is far from their reality of Canadians face, and finally listen to common sense Conservative solutions?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
134,000 jobs created in the past year. Wages outpacing inflation for almost 3 years. A rate of inflation that is well within the Bank of Canada's guidelines at 2.4%. But we will not rest on that, Mr. Speaker. We cannot, because the aim now must always be to secure Canada's future. Budget 2025 puts a foundation for that in place. Will the Conservatives join us? Put the politics aside. Let's work on behalf of our constituents. Let's work on behalf of Canada right now.
The honourable member for Haldimand Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7, and yet GDP growth is currently zero. Manufacturing, auto, and forestry sectors are all declining, and families in Haldimand Norfolk fear for their livelihoods as the economy weakens. Despite this economic decline, the government has not repealed a single anti-development law. When will the Liberals finally admit that their economic plans is failing and remove the barriers and tax burdens holding back Canadian workers and the economy?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Almost 240 agreements signed between the federal government and various municipalities, large and small, for the Housing Accelerator Fund, Madam Speaker. They want to talk about getting things done and anti-development. The facts don't line up with that narrative. The reality is we need to build more. Duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, that kind of vision put in place through that agreement. But if they don't want to listen to Liberals, that's fine. They can listen to former Prime Minister Harper, who just the other day advised all members of Parliament to work together on behalf of this country. The time is now. Let's rise to the occasion. It's a moment.
Yeah. So when he said work together, that goes both ways, right? That means you guys need to work with the opposition when you present bills, as opposed to just presenting bills and not working with them. But then again, the media will never report on that.
Of crisis, a moment of rupture, we can respond right now.
The honourable member for Long Range.
Beginning with the bloody rupture.
Speaker, Newfoundland and
Labrador continues to face one of the highest unemployment rates in Canada at 10.7%, well above the national average. Statistics Canada reports that 52,000 private sector jobs were lost since last year, and the Bank of Canada says economic growth next year is expected to be just 1.1%. Businesses are delaying expansion and investment. At home, that means fewer projects, fewer jobs, and more people leaving to find work. When will this Prime Minister admit his economic plan is failing, listen to our solutions, and remove the barriers that are preventing job creation for Canadians?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, I have good news for this member. In Budget 2025, we are growing this country. We are growing rural Newfoundland and Labrador and the rest of Canada. We are working to invest in our apprenticeship programs. We are building roads, schools. The challenge, Mr. Speaker, is this member, as part of the opposition, is obstructing at every step.
Right.
Let's grow Canada. We need to work together.
Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, the fact remains that the Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7, yet GDP growth stalled at zero and GDP per capita was flat. Young people are leaving home because they can't find steady work. We have proposed a Canadian Sovereignty Act that would rapidly advance resource development by repealing job-killing laws like the oil and gas emissions cap, reward those who build, and protect Canadian innovation. So when will they listen to our ideas so people can stay, live, and work in the place that they love?
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, I'm going to remind the member opposite from Newfoundland and Labrador that voting against the bills that support Canadian workers, Canadian communities, the building of our country and our province of Newfoundland and Labrador is obstruction. If this member wants to see our province of Newfoundland and Labrador grow, I can tell her.
Another National Socialist. Democracy is obstruction to them, right? They would rather there not be democracy. Just listen to us. We won't listen to you. We don't like the way this messy democracy is working. Just get in line.
That we are ready, but this side of the House needs to work with us.
The Honourable Member for Mission Matsqui, Abbotsford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Small businesses are paying the price for the Prime Minister's economic inaction. In January, 52,000 private sector jobs were lost, and $39 billion in investment has fled to the United States. Wow. Canadian businesses are delaying expansion, and workers are losing their livelihoods. The Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7, but growth is flat, and not a single anti-development or major regulation has been removed by this government. So when will the Prime Minister empower the private sector to build at a scale necessary to protect Canada's economy in the face of American threats?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Speaker, the Prime Minister has a plan to build Canada. He's laid it out, and we're taking action to advance that. Because individuals in British Columbia, they want to see the investments that we're making. They want to see the major projects move forward. They want to see the new housing, and they want to see us grow this economy to the strongest economy in the G7. Mr. Speaker, we're moving forward with this plan. Can we count on the Conservatives to join us?
Honourable Member for Northumberland, Clark.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7, yet under his watch, $58 billion of net investments have fled to the United States, and we've lost 28,000 manufacturing jobs. Promising to build a pipeline is not enough. Creating a new bureaucracy, not enough. Reapproving projects over and over again, not enough. We need shovels in the ground. We need them in the ground now. When will the Prime Minister do what he promised and build at a scale we haven't seen in generations and work with Conservatives to stand up for our sovereignty against the American threat?
Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, 160,000 new jobs created since September. Wages are up. Inflation is within the standard rate. Mr. Speaker, we know that certain sectors like auto are feeling the pain from the tariff war, but we have a plan, Mr. Speaker, a plan that was laid out in our budget that was introduced in the fall, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the Conservatives are blocking the budget at committee. If that member wants to make a difference for workers in his community, pass the budget, Mr. Speaker, so we can unleash the power.
The budget is still being discussed in committee. It's not being blocked because you clowns have put in totalitarian turnkey parts in there to allow you to circumvent the law and do everything in darkness and without any accountability. You're trying to sneak in stuff to allow you to do anything without accountability. That's why the bill's not getting passed, you moron.
Build in this country, protect jobs, support communities, build our country, Mr. Speaker. Will the member do it? Will the Conservatives do it?
The honourable member for Cloverdale Langley City.
I just attended an event hosted by Speak BC with a room full of highly trained engineers and technologists. They were asking whether the next round of manufacturing investment will stay here in Canada or go to the U.S. They want solutions so that their jobs are secure. StatsCan says we lost 28,000 jobs last month in manufacturing alone. That's fewer shifts, tighter budgets, and more families struggling to get by. The government has to recognize that what it's doing isn't working. When will the Liberals listen to our constructive solution to this urgent problem?
And those are manufacturing jobs, right? If we're not making anything here, we're toast. I mean, that's the whole point of an economy is you have to make stuff to sell stuff. But if we're losing all the manufacturing jobs and all the government is offering money to spend for government jobs and part-time jobs, because that's what they're doing right now, we're toast. We're done. Yeah, we're heading into depression very quickly.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, building a strong economy is not just about looking at any single sector. It's about looking at all sectors. So making sure we're investing in the economy of the future today, make sure we're investing in technology, making sure that we are investing in artificial intelligence, make sure we're creating the jobs of the future in industries where Canadians can lead. So as we work to support our manufacturing sector, Mr. Speaker, we're also making sure that in health sciences, in life sciences, in biotech, in technology, in e-commerce, in digital, in AI, in quantum, Canada is going to continue to lead and create the jobs of the future today.
Here.
The honourable member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Mr. Speaker, a functional healthcare system relies on modern data infrastructure. However, at a time when data is circulating at lightning speed, too many doctors and nurses are still forced to use outdated technologies such as fax machines to share information about their patients. Can the Minister of Health inform the House of the steps the government is taking to remove these barriers and thus save lives? Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. The time that patients wait for their files to be transferred means that lives could be saved faster, and their doctors are still spending too much time printing documents and not enough time helping people. The Connected Healthcare System Act that we tabled last week will break down silos and build a data infrastructure for health for all Canadians. So I am delighted to be working with members of Parliament and senators to get this legislation adopted. Thank you.
Brant South, Six Nations.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is a national crisis, exploding 330% since these Liberals took office. In Surrey, Calgary, Brampton, and across Canada, Canadians are being threatened, shot at, firebombed while criminal gangs and violent non-citizens extort families, all thanks to Liberal inaction. Will the Prime Minister support our plan, even supported by the NDP Premier of BC, to bar extortionists and serious criminals from exploiting refugee claims, or will he continue shielding criminals while Canadians pay the price, often with their lives?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we've been meeting those who have been impacted by extortion, and I want to extend my condolences to those who have been impacted. Let me just say, Mr. Speaker, we need to work in collaboration in order to ensure that extortion is addressed. We need the party opposite to pass critical pieces of legislation, including C2. Virtually every law enforcement agency, every heads I've spoken to have asked for lawful access to become law in Canada, Mr. Speaker. It's one of the most important tools to ensure that extortion is addressed. We need to stop the obstructionism and make sure that we have critical tools that are important for law enforcement.
The Honourable
No, Gary, you need to answer questions in committee in order to get your bill passed, right? You need to work with the opposition on the little fuck-ups you put in your bill to fix those in order to get your bill passed. You just don't go into Parliament and demand that your bills be passed and accuse the other side of obstruction when you refuse to work with the other people in a government that you don't have a majority in. So stop acting like you have a majority, Gary.
South Langley.
Mr. Speaker, extortion has surged by 330% since the Liberals took office. Across our country, Canadians are under attack, and the Liberals are rejecting conservative plans to stop this violence. Now, convicted extortionists are exploiting loopholes in our justice and immigration system by filing refugee claims to stay in Canada. Will the Liberals back our conservative plan, also supported by the BC NDP Premier, to bar non-citizens convicted of serious crimes from making refugee claims, or will they continue to side with the criminals?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, the second bill that we brought in this Parliament was C2. C2 addressed this very issue and also provided other measures like lawful access. I'm glad to see that the Conservatives have somewhat cooperated and split that bill into C12, which is now in the Senate, which will create an ineligibility for precisely these types of people who try to exploit our system. Mr. Speaker, they will no longer be able to apply for asylum, but I'd like the members opposite to also cooperate on lawful access, because we need to catch these criminals.
Honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals voted against a Conservative amendment to Bill C-12, which would have barred non-citizens who are convicted of serious crimes from abusing our asylum system and making refugee claims. They voted against that. That's crazy. Will the Liberals agree with Premier David Eby that that is an amendment, that is a proposal that should be accepted, as well as non-citizens who are accused of serious crimes should not be able to make refugee claims, because that's kind of bananas?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I've been following these cases very closely, and the case in BC where some people have filed for asylum, C-12, which is in the Senate right now, progressing nicely, will make it an ineligibility for those particular claimants to be able to file for asylum. So we are closing those loopholes, Mr. Speaker. We're working tirelessly to make sure that extortionists get caught, but will the Conservatives help us to give law enforcement the tools that are needed? Please, I'm asking, C2, lawful access measures are needed in order to catch child pedophiles and extortionists, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Advancing gender equality is key to building a strong and prosperous Canada where everyone can succeed, while the Conservatives minimize coercive control as normal family behaviour and debate 2S
What coercive control is she talking about? As far as I'm concerned, the only people who've coerced anyone in society have been liberals, especially during the COVIDity stupidity. And your insane attitude with gender this and gender that, there's already laws in place. You don't need to change everything into cultural Marxism.
rights at their convention. Our government is making sure our organizations across the country have the supports that they need. Can the Minister of Health share how we are empowering, strengthening national women's organizations across Canada? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
I look forward to the day when the government will be empowering men's organizations across Canada today.
Today, the Minister for Women and Gender Equality announced over $15 million in funding to support national women's organizations across the country and strengthen capacity building. This means a stronger and more sustainable national women's sector. It means greater capacity to support the organization driving progress on gender equality. It means stronger collaboration to advance opportunity, safety, and rights for women and girls everywhere. This is how we build a Canada strong, where we...
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, Hong Kong has sentenced newspaper publisher Jimmy Lai to 20 years in prison simply for exercising his rights and freedoms. of the press, of speech, of assembly, of association guaranteed in an international treaty, the Sino-British Joint Declaration? Will the government reiterate its call for Jimmy Lai to be immediately released? And secondly, will the government acknowledge that his imprisonment is a violation of an international treaty and international law?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. Canada is deeply disappointed with the tragic sentencing of Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong. We call for the immediate release of Jimmy Lai. In fact, we have consistently spoken out against the national security law since its imposition in 2020. While in Beijing, I reiterated Canada's long-standing position to my counterpart that the persecution of journalists, of media workers, of activists is unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, Canada will always support a free...
The Honourable Member for Nunavut.
The year before the election, Liberals planned to cut the Inuit Child First initiative. When Inuit heard this, they spoke up by the thousands. Under Nunavut's pressure, Liberals promised to extend the program. Since being elected, the Minister for Indigenous Services promised an announcement on ICFI. 9 months later, far too many Inuit children are still being kept below poverty level. Still no announcement. Will the minister finally act to help Inuit children, or should they feed themselves on her promises?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for, being really consistent with representing her members. The message has really been clear for me that we need to respond. That's why we've been working with our partners to look forward to see what the next step is going to be. I'm sure that you will be pleased to see what that is going to be. I am going to look forward to what the message is going to be when it comes out very briefly. Thank you.
And that concludes question period. The Honourable Member for Vancouver East is standing up on a point of order.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. When my colleague, the member from Nunavut, was asking her question, a page actually walked across the aisle in front of her. And so I just want to bring that to your attention, Mr. Speaker, and ask whether or not we could have the member repeat her question.
I didn't notice. Was there an obstruction? Was there an obstruction there? No. I deferred to the. But.
Speaker's getting consulted whether or not that's in the Green Book, and he needs to let her speak again.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it, and there is activity in the House. I mean, we try to have the picture stay clear of people entering and exiting, but it is above all a Parliament with pages and support staff, and so I'm afraid I won't be able to do that. The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Mr. Speaker, members of this place who are in unrecognized parties get a 35-second opportunity once a week. And I take members at their word. And the member for Vancouver East, I wonder if it wouldn't be appropriate, we do it for each other all the time, is it appropriate to ask for unanimous consent for the member from Nunavut to place her question again?
I mean, I have to read.
Okay, we're just waiting for a little decision here.
All those opposed to the Honourable Member moving the motion will please say nay. Nay. Okay. Unfortunately, there's no agreement to move on. The Honourable Member did have a chance to ask her question. It was I thought, a fairly pointed question, and there was an answer delivered. The House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion.
All right, so that was the end of question period. So what happened today? What were the big talking points? As usual, the cost of living was brought up over and over and over again. No surprise, the old age security. Now that seems to have expanded into attacking the Karam software. Now they were mentioning the software yesterday. If you're watching the show, I brought up the fact that there's some connections there between Karam and Deloitte, and how they're all involved in this scheme of basically the liberals going out there and finding out new software developers. Now they went and mentioned $5 billion in over expenditures from 1 point something billion to an additional $5 billion more. And the liberals came back and says, "Oh no, that's within the budget." Apparently not. Apparently, it was not supposed to cost that much money. My God, that much money! It was the same thing with the Phoenix pay system. If they had just taken that amount of money and just hired people for the next 100 years, to put out checks. It would have worked faster and given people jobs rather than wasting all that money away for a software program that's going to need to be continuously tweaked and fixed. Because obviously now we're up to 86,000 seniors who are not receiving their checks. That's insane. Now, of course, if you listened at the question period, they were still going on about, give me the names. And they're like, my God, people, you want us to give you 86,000 names for you guys to go one at a time and fix them? That's insane. And even the public servants are saying this software is crap, giving it a score out of 5 out of 10. Well, it does not look like this situation is going to go away. I believe they're going to talk about this every day this week, and probably every day the House is going to sit right until the spring break, or if they call an election early, which it seems they may want to. Another talk, of course, is the EVs, the ongoing discussion, saying that why are you paying Americans why are you giving Americans taxpayer money, basically, for their EVs? Why did you create an EV purchasing system that's going to benefit more auto manufacturers south of the border than in Canada? And of course, as usual, the Liberals didn't answer the question, and they just said that they have a great plan to increase the electrification of this and that. And you keep talking about these battery companies. Of course, they ignore the fact that all the other electrification projects that they've had have all been failing one after another, or just not going into development because nobody's buying their crap. Nobody is buying your EV crap whatsoever. The only people that purchased it got in before the last credit was available. So there was a huge spike. Then after that, it dropped. Now, do you think people are going to be going out there and purchasing more EVs knowing what the problems are with them? You know that your insurance is going to go way up because these things can burst into flames at any time. So you can't really park them in an underground garage if you have them. And if they're allowing you, well, be prepared for the fact where you're going to get banned. You know that they cause more wear and tear on the roads than regular vehicles because they're heavier, which means their tires wear faster. And if you know the cost of tires, well, tires are that way. So a lot of things people don't realize when you buy a new car, oh, get a nice shiny car, and then come your insurance costs, and then come your tire replacement costs. And next thing you know, oh, it's not that cheap to actually charge. In fact, it's going to cost you probably more money to charge them than it would if you were actually pumping gas in. Because when your EV is sitting there, it's a constant trickle charge that you're losing power. I could park my ICE vehicle in the driveway for a month and not drive it. I get in the next day and my gas tank will be at the same level. But you leave your EV parked in your driveway for a month, you'll be lucky if there's a charge left by the end of the month because every day you're going to be losing a percentage of your charge because it needs to be topped up all the time. They don't tell you about that about these EVs, do they? Oh, no, not at all. Then, of course, we live in Canada. So come wintertime, oh, how do batteries work in the really cold? And of course, I don't want to scare people, but there's a thing called thermal runaways. And if you get a battery that's got a little damage on it whatsoever, that can create a hotspot, which can permeate throughout your entire battery and go really quick. And next thing you know, poof, you've got a bit of burning issue going on. What else did they talk about? They talked about the low-cost drivers. That's been brought up over and over again by the Bloc in Parliament. It was brought up last session in the fall. It's brought up again this year. Basically, they have these low-cost drivers, basically immigrants that they've allowed into the country that cause a lot of accidents and problems. And for the longest time, the Liberal government that says, well, why do you want us to get involved in your provincial rules with drivers? And now, of course, they're saying, look, clowns, the federal government that gives money to Canada Post is hiring like 20 of these low-cost driver companies. So when are you going to uniform foxtrot yourselves on this situation? But no, it'll be brought up again because they're not going to do anything. Now, another member brought up an issue in Quebec City. Apparently, there's a tramway that's being built and there's over costs on the extension project. And of course, they're wondering whether or not they're going to get the money for that. And of course, the Liberals came out and said, "Oh no, don't worry, it's all in a budget. We're going to pay for it." But I don't think he really said he was going to pay for it. I think the Quebec's going to be on the hook, but that's okay because Quebec gets $9 billion in transfer payments from the West, so I'm sure they can find a little bit of money there. Also, problem is refugees regarding the extortion problem out west, and of course, Michelle Rumpel-Gardner pointed out that the Liberals voted against the amendment in Bill C-14 that would deal with this extortion problem by immigrants by kicking them out of the country, and the Liberals voted against it. Right. And so every time the Liberals come out and say, they're not working with us, well, obviously you're not working with them either because you want to keep the same crisis and chaos going on in Canada so that you can bring in your totalitarian turnkey legislation one at a time. But apparently, what's happening is that these refugees are getting caught for doing criminal stuff like extortion, and then they're claiming refugee status, and then you can't get them out of the country. And they're saying, can we just stop that? Can we just say, like, no more? But of course, the government will not respond to that question. They'll just point to the legislation that's slowly crawling through committee because it doesn't really deal with this issue by saying that you must pass the legislation so we can deal with this issue, whereby they're not really going to deal with it at all because, as usual, they lie in the lower house and the Liberal paid media doesn't cover these lies at all. In fact, they just basically accolade them all the time in mainstream media. And what else we got? Oh, yes, Jimmy Lee in prison. Journalist, publisher, now thrown in jail in China for 20 years. And they asked, so what are you going to do, Liberals? We made all these deals with communist China. What are you going to say? And they said, oh, we strongly worded something to the China people. You think that's going to affect anything that China's doing in Canada? Do you think that's going to affect their ability to continue with their purchase of oil fields out in Alberta under this government? No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. All right. Well, I think that pretty well covers everything that happened in the House today. Please join us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for the second breakfast. And then we'll be back in the afternoon again at 1:30 for the nap. And we might not be a pre-show tomorrow. I have an appointment after second breakfast. I don't know if I get back in time for that, but I will be back here for the nap, unless, of course, I'm caught on the 401 in traffic. Who knows? Who knows? All right, let's get out of here. And,
$60 billion of investment. Every region of this nation is going to benefit because we have a prime minister and a government.
A little quick there. We'll get on our way out the door, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming out. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Bye-bye.
Government that works for Canadians day in and day out. Conservative Party of Canada, get on side.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Speech yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
The Minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears.
It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
All of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Know that this government has their back and we will continue to do this. We report that there's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Deficits are driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Sets us up well for the new world order.
Senators just don't get it, Madam Speaker. Is stop the filibustering on our budget implementation bill. If we have a Prime Minister that is literally bringing in billions of dollars of foreign investment, it's time that the Conservative Party...
The Prime Minister promised a strong economy. He delivered stagnant growth.
The Conservative Party of Canada, get outside!
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.